was the first chair of the advisory committee on the status of women. In fact, I lobbied for the creation of that committee. And it was a time when change was still a force in the community and in the political environment. We had gone through more than a decade of assassinations of a president, of an attorney general, of a human rights activist who was world known, Martin Luther King Jr., and it had trickled down into Worcester, obviously. And we had experienced various constituencies questioning the empowerment or the lack of empowerment of the people living in the community. One of those groups was the women in the community. There was concern that, for example, at the very entry level of public service appointment to boards and commissions, there was a huge disparity between the number of women, who were half the population, and the number of men who were actually chosen to serve on boards and commissions. It was less than a third in '77. We had to make giant leaps over that period of time since '77 that still took an unusually long and painful period of empowerment. And when we look at the situation now with the statistics being as low as they are, you have to ask, how long does change take? It doesn't take years or decades, it takes generations.
I served from probably around 2003, I'll say, to about 2008 or so. So I think it was about 6 years. And I chaired it, I want to say, for probably about 4 years. And what got me interested in serving on it was I've always been interested in women's issues. So I thought this would be a good way to get involved and find out what was going on in the city. We worked on pay equity for a part of it. We also did a survey and asked women to fill them out. And sort of ironically, what came out as top concerns for women at that point, and this is probably 10 years ago, were homelessness, childcare, and transportation. Ironically, probably things that if we did that survey today would be the same. So, yeah. But that was a big undertaking of the committee. I also chaired it for the 30th anniversary. I think my favorite story about the 30th anniversary is that the woman, Fran Minacchio, who was our staff liaison at the time, had given me a lot of different documents from the committee years ago. And as I was reading through them, I kept seeing these awesome letters signed by this Annette Rafferty. And I thought, who is this Annette Rafferty? She's great. And she was really involved in a lot of the different issues. So I came here to Abby's to interview Annette, and that's how I met her. And then she gave me a tour of Abby's, and when I went off the Status Women Committee, I applied to be on the board here at Abby's, and I've been on the board for 5 years and have chaired it for the last 2.
I joined the committee because I wanted to be involved with women's issues from every perspective. We had started Abby's House, and I knew the population well, and I wanted to extend the information to a larger audience of women, and I thought it would be a really wonderful opportunity to do that on the Status Committee. I was also a very good friend of Dot Bradiotis, who served as chair before me, and I was her runner-up, so to speak, her assistant on the Status Committee in 1984. And I got in right at the right time, because women were expressing concern about violence in the city. And so the committee, the Status Committee at that time, decided to set up a quadrant conference in every quadrant of the city. And it was called Women Speak. And it was held on 4 different nights in 4 different parts of the city. And we got to listen to women's voices, women's concerns from north, south, east, and west. And there was several common themes. The drug use was on the rise at that time in the early 80s, and women were afraid for their children living in neighborhoods that drugs were, handily available. And the other one was that women coming into the city seemed to have no place really to find what was available for services, there was no advocacy center for women in the city to go to. And there were other concerns that came up, but all of that was compiled, the information was compiled, and then I became the chair of the Status Committee when Dot's term was up. So I actually had 4 years, because I was 2 years with her, and I think the term is 2-year term. I've forgotten that, whether it is, but I was there for 4 or 5 years on the Status Committee. I think there'll always be an important role for the Status Committee. And even if they push beyond their role as advisory and upset a few apple carts, that's good, because it continues raising consciousness. It brings women together. They find what they have in common, not what their differences are. And I think the Status Committee has pushed for a lot of wonderful things that have been implemented.
My year on the committee really was a restructuring and strategic planning opportunity for us. And so with that, I think that we were successful in bringing people in to spotlight issues that were going on, not just in Worcester, but for Worcester residents who had been spread out throughout the state. So we most recently in the spring connected with leadership from the Chicopee Women's Prison Facility. And we did that because they are serving an overwhelming amount of Worcester residents in that facility, but there is no support for those women as they re-enter our Worcester community. And we spoke with the city manager and kind of urged him to look at that and to bring some support to the women as they re-enter our community. It was a historical year in that we wanted to understand what had been done, what are the needs, and where do we go from here. For the next 40 years or so is to really serve as that place inside City Hall, that place in the city where women can go to get support as they embark on these leadership tasks and as they embark on these projects to serve other women and other residents of the city. Having the ACSW be a place where they can gain some leadership skills, can gain some insights, some mentorship, almost as if a support group in a way. And I think really creating more opportunities for women to just come, not participate on the committee, but for the committee to host events where women can come and get all of that support and mentoring and skill development so that they are strong enough then to carry out the work in their individual lives and paths. I think not being afraid of kind of the mystery of City Hall and realizing that the committee is made up of people who are everyday residents. And so there is power in your unique voice as a common resident of Worcester. And so just reaching out to come to a meeting and see what it's about. Looking at the past meetings that are posted online, familiarizing yourself with who's on the committee so that you can reach out, because everyone's available. Everyone is always available. It's just a matter of reaching them.